to the CoDaKrew podcast. Today, we're covering match week 29 of the Premier League, and if you don't already know how this works, our scoring system and scores from last week are on screen now. I got 11 points, Swapito got 9, so now he has a 2-point lead as we enter the last 10 match weeks, and therefore the last 10 episodes of our predictions. That being said, let's get started with Bournemouth against Brentford.
Okay, so this streak that Bournemouth is on, 8 games unbeaten, it's impressive, but a lot of them are draws and not really close to wins either. Against Sunderland, they needed like a real jolt off the bench to rescue that point, and even after equalizing, they didn't really push for a win. Really, on this recent streak, I think they just have not been as hot in attack compared to earlier in the season. They have been resilient in defense, they do make it hard to beat them, but you could say they also don't do enough to win themselves. So now against Brentford, who have a great attack and surely are going to give Bournemouth a hard time, I think they need to act a bit faster. Like start quicker, see if they can score first. If they can do that, then yes, they can focus more on the defense afterward. But I do think they've got to push for goals of their own, give themselves some room for error. Otherwise, I think they just get outscored. That'll be how they lose, I think.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, Bournemouth have been very consistent all season, but the last few games especially, they've really been struggling. There are some questionable decisions in there as well. For example, I think Admin Adley should absolutely be starting in that last match against Sunderland. And I hope he starts in this match if Bournemouth want to put their best foot forward. Obviously, Tavernier, Clivert injured, but you need to be a lot more consistent. We were talking about Bournemouth as a team that could potentially qualify for a European spot. And now they're facing the 7th place team, Brentford. So this is like a must-win game for Bournemouth. And on one hand, they're not coming into it with the worst form because of what you said, but right now, I think Brentford looks more consistent than Bournemouth.
Yeah, though I will say, having been 3-1 up at the half, this should have been a triumphant win for Brentford, but the sentiment I've seen from a lot of fans is this is not a game to celebrate, because Burnley, a side that has struggled to create anything from open play this entire season, found 3 of those goals against them, and 2 close VAR calls spared the Bees from what could have been 5 conceded. I feel like their offense was good, to be clear. They just lost control in the back. Coyote was all right, but had 2 key mistakes. Vandenberg looked real uncomfortable with headers. And as much as I want to back my guy Kelleher and say he could have saved a goal or 2 if he was there, I don't know there was much more that their sub-keeper could have done there. Brentford haven't been half bad defensively this season, and I want to say, like their attack in the game before, oh, it's just a fluke. They'll be better next game. But this game just seems so utterly out of their control that I'm really not sure. And though I have no issues with their forward line, I am wondering if their back line can keep up.
I do think that part of it as well, though, to be fair, is Brentford have just been... not Brentford, but Burnley have just been absolutely on a tear recently. It is unfortunately way too late for it to matter at all, but it's now 3 games in a row where they're completely dead for parts of the game and then they just randomly come alive. Knowing what I know up against Brentford, they're actually a very defensively stable team against others sort of mid-table similar sides. And while, yes, defensively, shit show, on offense, they were exactly as expected, right? So I think based on, if we're talking about who has been on better form recently, I just trust Brentford more coming into this match. That being said, as well for Brentford, I think because it's a midweek, obviously rotations are going to be a big factor. Bournemouth, I was talking about, have some injuries, and I think Brentford also are in a better position just depth-wise.
Yeah, fair. I do think, I trust the Brentford defense enough here, but really the factor for me is going to be who scores first. I think that's what this game is really going to hinge on, because assuming Brentford is strong in offense again, Bournemouth need that leeway of the first goal, I think, to hope for even just a draw. And of course, if Brentford score early, they can force Bournemouth to play more forward, and then maybe the Bees get some more chances of their own. As well, as of recent, whether home or away, Bournemouth have not been that first team to score. That's the thing. So I think Brentford can get 1, maybe 2 goals even to start. I'll say 2. And then I'll say that though their backline was very questionable last match, they can avoid giving Bournemouth too much momentum here for a comeback. I think Bournemouth will still score, but only once, and I'll say it is a 2-1 Brentford win.
Yeah, I have a similar score to that. I think the X factor in this match is tactical. Bournemouth's high line and Brentford's ability to put balls in behind. So even though Bournemouth are at home, I basically have a very similar reasoning as you. I think Brentford can control this match. Bournemouth will get chances, but again, with the offense they've been playing recently, that's always a little bit questionable. And I also do have a Brentford 2-1 win.
All right. Now, for a second, I mean, well, Burnley looked like they could go on a bit of a run, right? Unfortunately, some would say unfairly, they did lose that run just now against Brentford. Can they go back to winning ways here against Everton?
Well, it's going to be tough. It continues to be very baffling to me, their form recently, and I still don't know whether it's actually something or if if they just got lucky a few times. I said in the video yesterday, like at some point, like 3 times is no longer a coincidence anymore. But against this opponent, Everton, I mean, against mid-table and lower mid-table sides, Everton can absolutely break the game down, just play physical, and especially at home, I don't know that Burnley can handle it. A large part of Burnley's attack as well is like crosses, playing aerially, and with Jared Bramthwaite back for Everton, I think it's also going to be a lot harder for Burnley to create chances that way.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this was one of Burnley's most proactive performances this whole season. Unlike when, they drew Chelsea or they beat Palace, where they were getting a lot of chances handed to them. They actually did build a lot of their own pressure here. But I'm not sure that Everton is going to allow them like the same sort of momentum that Brentford did. In fact, I think with Everton, like looking at their last game, they had really strong defense, and then their offense kind of just played a lot of good pressure across the game. They had like half as many shots as Newcastle, I remember, but just over time they'd have some really strong chances. And yeah, they were very proactive as well, Everton's offense, which is great because if you're going to stop this proactive Burnley offense, well, what do you got to do? I would say you need to put on some attacking pressure of your own. And as well, Everton did that, and they were defensively solid. So I think they can really repeat that here. They can stop Burnley from getting nearly as many opportunities as Brentford gave them. And most importantly, they're not going to score like 3 goals and then they just sit back and let Burnley do whatever. I think it could be like a goal first half, a goal or two second half. And ultimately, I don't think Burnley are going to get that like comeback opportunity that they had.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, I would be shocked if Burnley do go on a crazy run again. I would not even understand how to start analyzing that at this point. I think also like Burnley, we don't think about this much, but Burnley obviously have a lack of depth issue, and part of that is due to injuries, and so that's going to be a big factor here. And of course, I do trust Everton's depth more. So yeah, I think basically what you alluded to is what I think is going to happen. I don't see a crazy Burnley offensive run going here. I think Everton can just get a solid 2-0 win.
Okay. I'll have the same goal margin, but I do trust that Burnley can score something. I just feel like that's been in the cards for them recently, as they always do find some sort of goal. But I will say, yeah, Everton score first half, maybe find another goal early second half, or maybe they get 2 in the first half instead. But either way, Burnley has to really open up, and I do think they can respond with one. But the more they chase, the more space there is for like Njai, McNeil, Everton's midfield runners to really exploit. And I'll say Everton find one more at the end. So it'll be a 3-1 win for me.
All right, well then that brings us to an exciting match from 2 of the newly promoted sides this season, and it's Leeds hosting Sunderland.
Yeah, Leeds are going to be, I think, a bit disappointed to not come out of that City game with a goal because they did have some good chances, close to, I think, a bit more than 1xG during the first half. But the unfortunate thing is, like their execution was not quite there. I know the chance from Calvert-Lewin at the start, he could not keep it on net. That was a very unfortunate one. But then at the same time, I don't think they can play quite the same against Sunderland. They're not going to get all those early half chances. And the reason is, well, Leeds love that counter. They love to high press. But Sunderland away are going to have like at most half of the possession. Leeds will be getting probably 50 to 60% compared to they had 25% against City, and they really were just high pressing the whole time. So, and at the same time, guys like Siddiqui and Shaka can still set the tempo if given the chance. So I think Leeds' midfield needs to do them one better. You've got to have Ampadu, Gruev winning those second balls, keeping the game in Sunderland's half, put on a lot of early pressure, and look for that opening goal. If they can find that, I think they're well set. If not, like they did in the City game, they'll probably tire out. So again, I think the first score will be a pretty big difference here, and especially how early they score.
Yeah, I also agree with you there. I think the boogeyman here is Daniel Farke's suspension. the question is, how much is Leeds fully integrated his system, which is what it seems like from the outside, and can execute without him, or whether they're just going to collapse and sort of revert back to early mid season sort of Leeds that was really quite pathetic at parts of the season. Now, I think that Farke is actually not needed for the system to run because I think Leeds has just been too consistent with it. Uh, it's usually they actually start out very well. Like yes, they obviously couldn't score against City. Part of that maybe City just have a curse where teams just can't score on them anymore. I don't know what's going on there. More on
At
that
the
later, I
Etihad, at
suppose.
least, they have trouble. Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
here as well, no? Because, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's a big game scorer. He scored against City last time. He scored against Chelsea and Liverpool, so I don't know what's going on. But anyhow, yeah, the fact that Leeds, they never really need to take too long to adjust into the game is, to me, an indicator that without Farke, they can still do a decent job. And if that's the case, then this is going to be a very exciting midfield battle, isn't it? And in my opinion, this game's going to be won or lost in the midfield, and who wins the midfield is going to be based on the fans. And this game just so happens to be on road.
Yeah, that home advantage I know is a big deal for both of these teams. But I will say as well, yeah, midfield's a big difference. Sunderland, their last game looked a lot steadier with Xhaka back. Again, such a big player for this team, right? And his presence in front of the defense, it gave them balance. It let Diarra and Lefay take up better pockets and attack. And now I think with him there, we can expect the transitions and the vertical play to go better overall, which is very important for them. I think the big concern, again, is Leeds' early press and how well can Sunderland handle that. I know they have Ballard and Alderete who can attack cross as well. That's going to be big against Leeds' wingbacks. But Roofs in that last game was shaky at times, especially I remember toward the end of the first half. Turned the ball over 2 or 3 times. And if Leeds can force some turnovers, they could be putting Sunderland under very heavy pressure for that first half. And if they do, I think, that could end up with an early goal for Leeds, and Sunderland could be in some real trouble, especially playing away. But again, I will say, lastly, there is a time factor. Sunderland have got to survive those first few waves, but if they do, I think they can really grow into the match. That's kind of how they win a lot of these matchups, and I think they can manage that again here.
I think the problem for Sunderland here is if we're talking about who can win a game in a midweek, I think Leeds has a clear advantage there as well. They have more depth in the midfield. Sunderland, Reynaldo, Brabi, Mukiele, Churkin, so many injuries. 3 fullbacks injured, which is going to be, yes, Ballard and Alderete is going to help, but having all of your fullbacks out, we saw all the pockets of space that they were giving Bournemouth wingers. Leeds is still going to take advantage of that as well, and I think that is going to help their attack to some extent. So I'm not so sure that someone can actually get back into this game, even if they don't, concede early, because the longer this game goes, the more they get tired out. That 12-man factor just really becomes more and more of a big deal. So for me, I don't know whether it comes early or late, but I think it's going to be a very low-scoring match. I think it's going to be very scrappy, and I do have Leeds getting the 1-0.
Okay. I think, if Leeds start again the way they did against City, they can probably actually convert one here. That is a big question, I think. Can they convert one and then avoid that second half drop in energy, or at least avoid it being too much of an issue for them? Sunderland, for their part, they can stay through the whole game. They can stay vertical for those whole 90 minutes and punish a stretched game. But their away form hasn't been convincing, right? They need the Stadium of Light. And as for Leeds, Elland Road is a big boost for them. So I think that's going to be a big difference maker for me. And I think both teams can score. I can absolutely see a 1-0 to Leeds. I'm going to say both teams do score, but Leeds eventually find a winner. Maybe, that home advantage is going to help them a lot there. And I'll say it's a 2-1 to them.
All right, fair enough. Well, then that brings us to the next match, and it is your club, Liverpool, after that 7-goal thriller up against Wolves.
All right. I'll speak on Wolves first, just quickly. I've talked about their energy that they've been able to bring to Arsenal in the second half of their game, Palace before their red card. They've brought a lot of energy for a team that's basically destined to be relegated, right? And they did that again here against Villa. Compact, scrappy, and they showed that they were willing to suffer through this game as long as they needed to before they found a chance. Because that first half was all Villa attacking wise, and they took it like champs. Then they scored with their first shot on target, defended the box well, and they punished Villa on the break. So Joao and Andre Gomez, were really good that match. They were scrapping for the second balls. They can do that again here, I'm sure. The back three are happy to sit deep and head crosses all afternoon. It is a very scrappy team. They're doing a very good job with that play style right now. It's just unfortunate they didn't find that earlier in the year, right? But I think they're going to give us some real problems. I like to think our offense will be better than it has been previously, just because the West Ham game showed that we were very good in offense for that one. That is the concern for Wolves, is do they get ripped open in the first half? But if they manage to survive it somehow, I think they have a decent chance of like a draw here. I won't say a win, but a draw is possible for sure.
I think there's something to that, actually. Yeah. What I will say, before I give too much credit to Wolves, part of it is also Villa not having their entire midfield, having to resort to this crossing strategy. So it is a little bit easier for Wolves to defend waves of attacks, because it's Wolves defending waves of attacks and Villa not being able to create very good chances with their attacks in the first half for Wolves, which obviously still Wolves doing very well there. Not to take away from that, and of course the counter-attacking strategy that they did against Arsenal, that they did against Liverpool, against Arsenal and against Villa, can also be done against Liverpool, because you guys have the high line fullbacks. You guys play the way you do, and it's very prone to, especially later on into the match as you tire out, Wolves to try to pull something off here. What I will say though, I think Liverpool, obviously you guys have some inconsistencies offensively, but my view has been that Ekitike especially, the whole attack, but Ekitike especially, they feast. They rack up their goal tallies against these weaker sides, and then ghost against the good teams. So if that's true, I actually think that that Liverpool can get quite a few good opportunities and get some goals here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. With the last game, I'm just going to get the bad stuff out of the way first, because I've seen a lot of complaints about this, despite it being a 5-2. I know we let up some good chances for West Ham. Somerville caused us trouble the whole match. Had he been more clinical, this could have been a less flattering scoreline for us. We looked shaky in the back, as always, right? It could have been better. But guess what? We scored 5 goals, which is exactly what I've been saying. Yeah.
I actually don't think you guys were that bad.
I think that's fair as well, but really, I'm just looking at the offense, and it's exactly what I've been saying we need to do this whole season, which is just outscore our defensive problems. And not only that, we were clinical with it. I've seen some people saying this scoreline flatter us, not because West Ham scored less than they could have, but because, we hit all our low XG corners. But that's been one of our biggest issues this season, is we can't take advantage of our set pieces. So I think Reds fans should be very pleased with this game. Even if you say, West Ham are terrible on set pieces, they're the worst at defending them. Cut half of the goals away. That's still a goal and a half off of corners against any other team, which is great. That is exactly what we've been needing in some of these matches. And while I expect our defense will continue to have nagging issues, if we can put up anything like this and just outscore those same defensive problems, like we can see that versus Wolves, I think we could manage that against a lot of teams. We will need our attack to be like at its best, and I don't think that's going to happen in every game. But let's just say they continue that form for a little bit. Wolves might be cooked here in this first half even. And if they don't survive, again, if they let up 2-3 goals early, I don't think they're going to mount much of anything to finish off.
Yeah, it's really tough to get away back in that situation. I will say this. I mean, again, I think against these weaker sides, this is where Liverpool's attack is at its best. Or at least that is when you guys are clinical. That's what I should say, because this is the real issue that we're talking about here. And Liverpool, I believe it's 7 of your last 9 goals were from set pieces. Now, what's interesting is it's not great on paper, but this is also the way a good team plays, right? Obviously, the title is long gone for you guys, but I mean, I said recently that I think you guys are not going to make the Champions League, but now with this sort of football, not pretty football, but the football that actually wins you games, I actually think that you guys are not a lock, but you guys are in a much better spot now.
Yeah, fair. I mean, yeah, just to give a quick read on this game, I mean, Wolves are going to be defending deep to start, right? They're going to make us work for openings, and if they survive the first little while, they can make it uncomfortable. But I think they'd be very lucky to score first. More likely, I'll say we score like a goal or even 2. I'll say 2 in that first half. There's just a gap in attacking quality here, right? And over 90 minutes, I expect that to show. I do think Wolves will still score 1 on us, just because I still don't trust our back line. But Yeah, I'll say we still score pretty prolifically, and I'll give it a 3-1 to Liverpool. Could be a 2-0 as well, but I'll say 3-1 here.
Exact same scoreline for me, 3-1 for Liverpool. Wolves' counter-attacking has gotten a lot more potent recently, and your attack has as well. So I think it's going to be high scoring.
Okay. Then we go next to two sides challenging for the UCL, but these two have both had some struggles as of late. So can either of them stabilize their positions? We have Villa facing Chelsea here.
Battle of the mid here. Villa with no midfield by force, and Chelsea having all of their attackers, bar Joao Pedro, playing like absolute dog shit. Here's what I will say. I think obviously in the midfield, Chelsea have a massive advantage. They're probably going to control the possession, even though Villa are at home. And the question is, can they actually finish those chances? Because recently Chelsea has been unable to put away games. They can score early, but they can't score too early. Not that they can't score too early, they can't score 2 goals early, is what I mean when I say that. And I think, yes, I mean, Villa have lost some of their potency, but it's still not a team that you want to keep in the game as it progresses.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, there have been some worrying recent performances from Villa, right? Once they failed to score early and their level just dips so quickly. In that last game it did anyways. The midfield just like loses control. The pressing gets very disjointed, and eventually, usually they just get punished in the transition. They let something up, and that's how they end up getting scored on. Against anyone other than Wolves or maybe Burnley, I'd expect in that last game that like a goal would have came earlier. It would have been first half and not second. So like they just have to lock in on defense in the first half. I know this team is second half FC and they don't tend to be good in the first half, but if they are as bad as they were in that game, it's going to be a very big issue. Chelsea will make it a big issue for them. So they just need to keep this scoreless long enough that they can actually feel comfortable going on the attack later. I think that's all there really is to it for them. It's tough because their midfield is like torn to shreds right now, but
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
that's
again,
all
I
they
think
can
I
really do.
think the question is not can Villa hold up. Is will Chelsea take advantage of their chances? Um, I think it's going to Chelsea. Like the thing is, with Rosier, up until very recently, the attack was actually very consistent, right? But I think one of his bigger challenges that we aren't talking about as much, that we haven't talked about yet, at least, is in the midweek. Chelsea does tend to look a lot more sluggish, and I'm worried that could come into effect here as well because while Villa are not going to control the possession, they control the tempo a lot of the times in these sorts of matches. They can easily, create a few chances just through some quick counters or quick plays in transition. And if Chelsea keep Villa in the game, I think it's going to be big trouble for them because I look at their back line. Obviously, Cucurella injured, all of those other injuries they have to the center backs, and I do not trust their back line to defend in transition. And in fact, their back line has not been good at defending transitions at all this entire season. So it really comes down to, I mean, I'll let you say your prediction first. It comes down to can Chelsea take advantage of their opportunities early, and if not, I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, fair. And I think actually, uh, this is I'm gonna say it's a pretty cagey match for the first half, and I think that will be for sure an issue for Chelsea because as bad as Villa have been as of late, they are still second half FC. They can mount a comeback if they need to. I'll also say Chelsea are looking a bit fragile defensively. Like it's 2 more goals conceded from corners, admittedly against the corner kings in Arsenal. But then there were also like some real issues with Robert Sanchez and their backline there. Um, they can maintain like vertical play for 90 minutes, but I think that'll be a lot harder to do if they're constantly worrying about what's going on behind them. I'm going to say, it's a cagey first half. Villa can find an opening goal in the second. They will have trouble holding on to that lead, I'm sure. But maybe it's a bit of bias for me because I think, like, I'd like for Villa to have points and I'd like for Chelsea not to, just based on where my club is. I'm going to say it's a Villa 2-1. I think it could actually go a lot of ways provided it is 0-0 in the first half. But I'm going to say it ends 2-1
I
to
mean,
Villa.
I'll say this: of the three possible outcomes in this match, I was heavily debating between two, and the one I was not considering was a Villa win. So that's interesting.
Okay.
I mean, I just go back to what I said before. The question is, can Chelsea take advantage early? And my guess is probably not. And if that's the case, then that is Chelsea maybe scoring a goal first half or only second, and Villa just Unai Emery just fighting away. Morgan Rogers probably putting a pass into Bundia or Watkins to just score a goal. So, I mean, that's like I could also see like a Chelsea 1-0 win because Villa's offense has also been a bit questionable recently. But at home, in the midweek, I'll say 1-1.
Okay, fair. Now we go to Brighton, who they have really picked up the pace lately, literally in their games, but also figuratively because they've completely flipped their form as of recent. But what are they going to do exactly against Arsenal? Can they possibly keep that form going here?
Well, it's going to be tough. I mean, I don't think we can now look at this question or look at their form after this match as a question of whether or not they were able to get a win or even a draw against Arsenal. Understanding Brighton, they are very streaky, but it's more like, do they get the results they're supposed to? Like, if they do lose this match, I don't think that would destroy their streak just based on how they've played historically. But even before I go defeatist and assume they're going to lose, offensively, they've actually stepped up quite a bit recently. And that is because of one man, and it's Danny Welbeck. When Brighton were at their best, late last year, it was Danny Welbeck who was on incredible consistent form. And while Kaoru Mitoma in particular has still not been good, if Danny Welbeck can cook, Brighton, I think the entire ship that is Brighton sort of sinks or sails along with him.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I will say they've gotten that early intensity back in their games, and the front three are looking pretty lively. Welbeck especially is great. Um, it was kind of a chaotic first 15 minutes against Forest, but it actually suited them quite well. Again, Welbeck so sharp in the box. Gomez attacking the second balls. But the key against Arsenal is they're not going to get as many of those chaotic defensive moments, giving them to Brighton, so that Brighton can feed off of them. Arsenal just defend their box far better, and they're more aggressive on second phases as well. So I think the midfield for Brighton will be a pretty big thing. If they can circulate quickly, they can try and draw Arsenal's press and open some space for the wingers. No doubt those wide duels then will be important as well. But it is just a matter of how much can Brighton end up getting. I think they have been decent with their chances, but it's how much can they actually produce in the first place, because it will be no doubt very difficult here. And Arsenal's defense are great too, so it's a tough mountain to climb, no doubt.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And again, just other than Danny Welbeck, I'm still very worried about Matoma's finishing. Missed a one-on-one opportunity in that last match. Diego Gomez wonder strike for the first goal, but I mean, obviously you can't rely on those consistent screamers to come in either. So yeah, I agree. They're not going to get many chances against Arsenal. They first off have to take advantage of their chances, which is a big question mark. And secondly, we know how good Arsenal are. Um, they're obviously going to do some rotating, but they have so much offensive firepower that it's going to be very difficult for Brighton to keep up, no matter who they end up fielding in their starting 11.
Yeah. Now, as for Arsenal, I mean, this last game was a bit nervy at times versus Chelsea. They needed some good bailouts from Raya. I know at one point toward the end of the second half, they were getting hit with a taste of their own medicine, really, just a bunch of corners, one of which was eventually the Chelsea equalizer. But they were very resilient under that pressure. And I don't think there was ever a point in this game where they seemed completely out of it, offensively or defensively. Their second goal even was completely against the run of play at the time, largely made possible by the fact that it was another goal from a corner. So that set piece proficiency really helped them stay in the game. And I imagine against Brighton, that's going to be just one factor helping them keep up the pressure, along with you've got Rice attacking second balls and suffocating Brighton's midfield. Gyökeres is running channels, Martinelli, Madueke attacking the outside of the box. Arsenal, as always, they have lots of ways to attack, and they can use them all at once. That's the big thing. And especially, Brighton are vulnerable to set pieces, or they look that way against Forest anyways. And again, Arsenal are set piece kings, right? So if you happen to not be great with set pieces, yeah, they're going to absolutely pound you with them, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with Arsenal, the depth, the ability to see out games, and especially that trio of Rice, Gabriel, and Saliba, where it doesn't matter, even if the rest of the Arsenal squad is playing bad, which much of them were in that last match, as long as those three are cooking, you're going to struggle to score. Chelsea created a lot of chances, created a lot of attacks, but struggled to get too many particularly good chances. Obviously, having to rely on a corner to get their goal, although of course Arsenal do as well. So for me, I think Brighton can get a goal here. Maybe either for Danny Welbeck or he just because he's a good anchor, he can also create chances for other players. But Arsenal just have too much in the tank. It might not be like a very pretty match, but it's at the point of the season where you just if you're in a title race, you just get the 3 points and go. You don't really complain about how you do it. So I'm gonna go for a scrappy Arsenal 2-1 win.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. I think it will be uncomfortable for some pretty long stretches for Arsenal, even because Brighton have that early intensity. They can show some wide threat. But over 90 minutes, Arsenal, they'll just have more control. Their midfield can suffocate the second balls. Again, their channels are going to, like, their channel runs are really going to stretch Brighton's back line. Every set piece is an opportunity for this team as well, and they will be generating as many corners as they possibly can here. Yeah, it's just going to be not really waves, but Arsenal will have moments, like constantly moments of pressure. Um, I think they just have too much variety in attack for Brighton to really deal with. And yeah, I'll say I think Brighton can score at some point, but I'll also give it a 2-1 to Arsenal. They'll score somehow. They always find a
Yeah,
way.
yeah. Okay, well then that brings us to Fulham against West Ham.
Okay, when we predicted this game for Fulham earlier, a lot of our reasoning, I think, for our respective scorelines was Tottenham are going to be bad. And they were, but at the same time, Fulham were far more dominant against Spurs than I think this 2-1 scoreline would suggest. The aggression, the tempo, especially the sharpness in the half spaces, they just looked a level above. Iwobi and Wilson constantly finding little pockets. Jimenez was linking play well. Fulham's midfield arrived first to the loose balls almost every time. Tottenham seriously had like no control over the ball here. And against West Ham, I think that central superiority is going to be decisive again because like Suchek and Fernandez can compete physically, but they don't always track the runners quickly enough. And that's where like, oh, if you can get Smith Rowe or Oscar Ball drifting inside, Fulham can make things very dangerous. And yeah, they have shown so much midfield presence. They can very much make that work. And if they move the ball from side to side, pull West Ham's wide players further inward, maybe they can even find some openings for the wingbacks or the fullbacks, Tete, Sessegnon, to get down the wings and put in some good crosses. So that's more variety for Fulham in terms of attack. Lastly, I think West Ham will allow those openings because we saw it versus Liverpool. They were quite questionable in the back. So I think Fulham can just play this game like they did the last one, and I think that style will do wonders for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, another part of the problem is for West Ham is Fulham, I think, have better depth than them, and it's going to hurt Mateus Fernandes especially. And actually, as also Thomas Tuchel quite a bit in that marking, in trying to keep up with Fulham's fast-paced attack, their overlapping midfielders and wingers, and just how threatening the team can look. There's also the question if and when Sasha Lukic is coming back. If he does, even if he plays limited minutes, just the little boost there to the midfield can be potentially decisive in this match. And if Fulham do end up controlling the midfield in this way, then West Ham are back in a position where they're not going to have a lot of attacks, and they have to be clinical with the few chances they get. Earlier in the season, that's their ability to actually be clinical in those few chances is a big reason why they're still alive in this relegation battle. But recently, the front three especially, they've not been finishing very well at all.
Yeah, I mean, as for West Ham though, I will say obviously 5-2 is a very ugly scoreline. It wasn't quite as one-sided as the score suggests because they did create plenty in open play in that first half. But like you look at Somerville, for example, he was very dangerous, but his issues were just the whole team's. Poor finishing from good chances early on, and then they all faded out later. Yeah, with better finishing, this game looks far tighter. Maybe the Hammers even find it in them to get a draw. But it didn't work out that way. They did not have that edge. And the other problem is one they've been having all season, which is again set piece defending. We've been so terrible when taking set pieces, but you conceded 3 to us. That is, even if we've been better at them recently, I don't think that's a good look. That is a real structural weakness that Fulham too can target, and especially with Anderson and Bassey, who are able to attack those deliveries. If West Ham don't fix that marking quickly, they will be punished the same way that we punished them in the first half with corners. That can very much work out for Fulham. And yeah, besides that, I think they'll have some trouble on attack in terms of finishing, just as they did in the game against us. They'll probably have decent chance creation, but I don't know that they'll make much of it.
Yeah, I more or less agree. I trust Fulham to do that way more. Alex will be on great form. Harry Wilson, I think he's had a pretty solid few months, especially finishing wise. And so I'm just going to go straight to my prediction. I think both teams will get chances. I trust Fulham a lot more to convert them. And so I'm going to go for Fulham 2-1 win.
Okay, fair. Maybe I'm extrapolating West Ham's finishing issues a bit too much, but then I could also say that, and again, this could also be my bias as a Liverpool fan, but I really don't trust our defense, and I feel like Fulham's can hold on a bit more than we were able to. But also, I think just generally, this will be a very tight match. It'll be pretty scrappy. West Ham could threaten on the break, but I just don't feel like they'll finish their chances. And like one well worked set piece will break them down. It's just they've not been good with set pieces at all this season. That's all Fulham needs really. So I'll say it's a 1-0 for them. Though I could see a 2-1. Maybe if West Ham score first, it ends up being 2-1. But I still don't really trust a West Ham win in the end. So I'll just say Fulham 1-0 and leave it at that.
Yeah. Fair enough. That brings us then to Manchester City in their title race against Nottingham Forest in a relegation battle.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about City's attack, naturally, given all the star players they have there. But against Leeds, without Haaland, they had to show a bit of a different side from the expected attacking prowess. This time they needed a lot of patience, a lot of resilience, some good leadership, and they found that, I would say, in the back. Because the Diaz-Gahey pairing was immense in the back line, especially late on. They attacked the crosses and the long throws with authority. And you had that backline leadership, which then allowed Rodri and Bernardo Silva to steady possession once Leeds' early press faded out. It was a great defensive performance, and City were then able to build on that. And it should give them, I think, a lot more confidence in this next game, that they can build on that defense to have now that they're playing at the Etihad, even more of the ball for longer stretches and doing more in attack with it. And Forest, playing at the Etihad, will certainly help that along. I expect Forest are going to have very little of the ball here. It could be like a 75-25 split even by the time the game is over. It's not going to look great. I know Pereira even has been more possession heavy than Dyche, but still, I don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah, you can try to be possession heavy. The thing is, will he even be capable of holding possession, even if he wants to? I will say for City, I alluded to this with Leeds. I thought it was an Etihad thing. Apparently, teams just forget how to finish when they play City in general now. The one thing about City is, offensively speaking, they can create chances. They score like a goal or two in the first half, a goal, 2, 3, it doesn't matter. Oftentimes, they just sort of sit back and kill the game off in the second because they know that even if it's just a 1-goal margin, you are really going to struggle to try to score against their back line, which has stabilized a lot in recent months. And not only is that a hard thing for any team to do, this Forest side, with how inconsistent their attack has been all season, it is going to be a very tough ask.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing for Forest right now is this lack of sharpness in games. I mean, these guys literally have, I counted, 64 shots in their last 3 league games and 1 goal to show for it all. They're not shooting well, and from those shots, they're not finishing well. I mean, against Leeds, also, they didn't score. Then they conceded 2 by the half-hour mark. Against Liverpool, they created better chances, albeit with a terrible performance for us. But again, they couldn't finish anything. In this last game, they conceded twice inside 15 minutes, and they never recovered control against Brighton. They have chances. Admittedly, they're not great usually, but they never finish them anyways. And yeah, they have key defensive lapses at the other end. So now they're going to get even less chances against City. And if in 64 shots they were able to score 1 goal, I don't think they're scoring any here. I don't they don't finish the chances they do get very well. And they're just going to be spending so much time defending here with constant pressure from City. Yeah, I don't know even that it'll be high scoring, but certainly Nottingham, I do not expect scoring anything. Yeah, kind of spoils my scoreline a bit, but
I think so, but I mean, I'll
Right.
just go to it, right? Like, City cook in the first half. They sit back, they kill the game out. Nottingham get absolutely nothing here. They do not have a prayer of getting a result at the Etihad in a midweek match too. I mean, you know how much City can rotate. We didn't even mention, by the way, that Holland's injured, but like, it's like who even cares at this point with City's
Right.
offensive capabilities? City 2-0 win.
Yeah, that's what I have. I won't even discuss it any further. It's just Nottingham are not scoring. They've not been scoring as of late, so I don't think it'll happen here by any means. Yeah.
Well, I think this next match is going to be a lot more interesting. It's Newcastle at home against Manchester United.
Right. Newcastle. I think one of their biggest problems right now, if not their biggest just generally, is game management. They've been struggling with it. I mean, 3 straight defeats at St. James's Park, and in each one, they just concede momentum far too easily at like the worst times. Against Everton, I mean, I know they had defensive errors, like Pope spilled the ball at one point, there were repeated set piece issues, but they equalized twice, and each time they concede within 2 minutes. That speaks to like, well, concentration and structure, or really a lack of it, a complete lack of it in these games. This is no longer the like controlled, territorially dominant Newcastle of last season or even the start of this one. They're easily stretched and they're just way too open in defense, in transitions. I mean, I found a stat. Since they beat Forest 2-0 back in October, they've had 2 clean sheets in 21 league games and 3 in 29 in all competitions. They cannot hold on. Defense used to be such a big thing for these guys. It was a platform for them. And now it's forcing their attack to compensate for all its errors, the same way our attack has to compensate for our defense. But then Newcastle's not going to score the same way we do, which means these holes in their defense are going to be all the more threatening for them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I will also say, even though United's defense has not been great, their attack has been more than able to. I mean, look, these guys have 19 points in 21. They have 19 points out of a possible 21 since Michael Carrick arrived. Like, obviously there will be things to criticize, but they are not exactly in a dire situation here. They have, I think, pretty much locked up, unless they just completely forget how to play football. They've close to locked up a top 3 spot in the Premier League, and that's a great turnaround given this place they were just a year ago. But anyways, um, in this match, Newcastle obviously with the midfield injuries, they're going to play possession football. I think just because United will let them sit down and will let them will be willing to sit back and play on the counter. But it goes back to, is Newcastle going to be able to convert their attacks into chances? And we just have not seen that this entire season, at least against decent squads.
Yeah, I think Newcastle, and again, it's like they don't have that defensive platform, so they'll kind of have to be a bit cautious with their attack, but that's not really what they want. I think if anything, first half they've got to get going, but I'm not sure that they will. As for United, I mean, they're still winning in a very specific way, where like for long stretches of matches, they are second best on the ball, especially early on. It happened against Everton 2 games ago. It happened again against Palace. But basically, they just sit compact, they absorb pressure, and slowly they pull all the momentum toward them. I mean, after like halftime against Palace, or maybe around like the 40th minute, the tempo really increased, the press got sharper, Bruno was finding pockets very consistently. The red card obviously helped them, but even before that, United were really starting to tilt the rhythm back in their favor. And once again, once they get ahead, they just control the game very calmly. Now, with how erratic and emotional Newcastle have been in the recent games, that patience is going to work wonders for United if they can manage it again. It is possible even that Newcastle scores first, like Palace did, but the Geordies are just so good at giving up momentum. Just as opponent things seem to be going well for them. Uh, Again, each time they scored against Everton, they conceded immediately, and I think they could very well do something like that against United. They could score, and then United score within like 5 minutes again because Newcastle just
That's the
cannot
mandate
hold
of
on.
heaven. That's the mandate of
Yeah,
heaven right there.
it helps as well that Carrick has the mandate of heaven, but Newcastle will give him that chance.
Oh, for sure.
That's
Yeah.
what they've been doing. Yeah,
I mean, can we just say in that last match, every time Newcastle scored, Everton like score right back on them straight from kickoff,
right.
pretty much.
It's like they could not hold on to a lead whatsoever. Like
Yeah,
now for United, I have some concerns around the back line. I know Shaw and Maguire are both doubts. Martinez is already out. But then like how hard are Newcastle actually going to push them here? And if Newcastle do score, again, can they hold on for more than like 2 or 3 minutes? They just don't look stable right now. And
Yeah.
United do look stable across their whole games, even when they're not on the front foot. They are very stable. Um, in our last prediction video, I said I thought the United Palace game could go similar to the United Everton game, and now I'm thinking this one might be similar to the Palace game. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say it. I'll give it a 2-1 to United. Yeah.
There, I thought you were gonna have a different scoring with me. I also have a 2-1 for United. I just think tactically this is a great matchup for United. Their offense has been absolutely firing recently, which especially juxtaposed with Newcastle is crazy. I mean, they even have Ahmed on the bench now. I think the one, if there is one question about United, it's not even like oh, is there an issue here? I mean, obviously the defense, but what can you expect, right? But the question, if anything, is should Chesko start? Because I hear like the arguments for, oh, like, I mean, obviously he's like one of the best three attackers on the team, of course, but also, do you want to preserve him and then use his speed to like unlock teams in the second half, which United has also done to great effect. That's like if there's a question about United, that's the question. It's not even about like their
Yeah.
performance or their ability at this point. Which,
Right. They
like,
they can
again,
do really
that's
well
such a dramatic
regardless.
turnaround. I mean, I just think about the position they were even like 2 months ago. The fact that we're now talking about them like a top three team in Europe, not in Europe, in England. Um, Obviously, like just points wise, it's too far gone for them to make a title charge, of course. But just being in a great position now, building for the future, like the optimism is back for this side.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, to end off the predictions, I mean, after starting the season well, Palace at one point were on some very poor form, right? And I'm sure there were even a few people wondering, were it to continue, if Palace could end up in a relegation fight. But there is another London team that should be a lot more concerned about relegation right now. That is Tottenham, who are hosting Palace at the Hotspur Stadium for the final match of the midweek.
I feel like Tottenham have to win this match. Not that they have
Yeah,
to win the match
yeah.
to be to avoid relegation, but just like, bro, Palace
It's
cannot play in
shameful.
midweeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
honestly.
shameful. They can't play midweeks at all, and now they're gonna play like 3 games in a week. Um, yeah, I mean that's what I feel like. It's just absolutely shameful. Tottenham. It's absolutely shameful if Tottenham cannot win this match. There's like no excuse at this point. I don't care that Romero is still out, bro. Like, you have so much talent. This Palace squad has no attack whatsoever. I mean, I guess besides like Strand Larson, kind of, but he's still not very consistent. Um, and I think and LaCroix is out as well, so like Palace have no defense as well. So what do you like? If Tottenham lose this match, bro, like I think they should relegate themselves.
Yeah, fair. I mean, okay, they're staring at the drop right now because people for a while were like, "Oh, it was in the back of their mind. Could Tottenham be shit enough that they go down towards like 16th, 17th place and maybe they drop?" No, they are really right there right now. 4 straight defeats, 10 games without a win overall, 4 points above the bottom three. Against Fulham, they conceded early again. Their press was very disjointed. They repeatedly failed to track runners. Iwobi's strike, for example, came after Solanke simply did not want to follow him. He looked like Mbappe or Vinny on Madrid last year when they weren't doing shit in defense and Jude had to cover for their ass every single time. That was Tottenham here. The midfield never truly controlled the tempo. Tudor even switched to a back four, and that couldn't get him a win. It's all around bad at Tottenham. That's what I'll say. What can they do against Palace? First and foremost, they cannot concede early again because they just do not have the stability right now to actually calmly chase after a game and go for a comeback. The opening 20 has got to be controlled. If they allow Palace to strike first, the players and the crowd are going to get very anxious and the decisions will be even more rushed. And it's just going to be a spiral for Palace, in favor of Palace, that is. If Tottenham can establish some control over the ball and the pitch, this is a game they can slowly take hold of. Of course, Palace have all those issues with their roster. And they do concede sustained pressure at times. So Spurs need to hold on long enough to get that opportunity. And then maybe they can finally find 3 points for the first time in like 10 games. If I see a goal within like the first 30 minutes for Palace though, I think that's it, man.
Oh, bro.
Yeah. That might be game set and match for Tottenham by that point.
Dude, what's crazy is I feel like Yeah, West Ham and Nottingham have had just a tough set of matches recently, and that's the only reason. Like, if West Ham and Nottingham had some easier matches recently, they could be in 18th place by now. They could actually be in 18th place by now. I mean, I think like Fulham is actually maybe a chance for West Ham to do something, but then also Nottingham, like against City, obviously nothing's gonna happen there. Yeah, I mean, we're not even talking about the game. This is like this Tottenham situation is so crazy. Um, I mean, I think for Palace, even though the attack is not the most consistent, guys like Pino and Sarr can cook, and it is that highline issue for Tottenham's fullbacks as well. I mean, that is why fundamentally I predicted Fulham to beat them. It was Alex Iwobi and Harry Wilson, and I think, I mean, Palace are not obviously at that level, not nearly at that level that Fulham are at, wingers wise, but they still have some firepower there, and it could be an issue.
Yeah, and I mean, while there were some clear structural issues for Palace, especially toward like halftime, they were struggling to handle United's sustained pressure, could not get to the ball in the second phases, especially once Fernandes started getting active. They were still, for a while, the better side. And yeah, you could say that's kind of how United play now, but Palace were compact, they were sharp on the counter, dangerous from set pieces. Tottenham did not show any of that in their game at like any point in time versus Fulham. Palace, if I was to compare their performances, yeah, Palace were better. And that's considering that Tottenham were playing against Fulham and not current United. So I just don't think it's a very good matchup of like current form for Tottenham right now. And yeah, I do think home stadium could help them a bit. Palace are vulnerable to errors. They do have a really weird roster right now. But I think Spurs, for however many chances they do get, however much control of the ball and the pitch they do have, they will not show too much threat on each of their shots. And each of Palace's counters is going to have a lot more to it. I'm just going to say Spurs get volume. Palace just take their chances better. It balances out. I'll give it a draw. For me, it'll be 1-1. It could be slightly different, but I think it will be a balanced scoreline, whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for 1-1. Yeah, I think like Palace. The big issue is obviously the midfield, especially like they cannot play, in these like double match weeks. But I just don't trust Tottenham's midfield to take advantage all that much. Without Romero, they have like no progressive ball handling ability. They can get a goal, but will it be enough to win? I don't think so. Palace can stick in these matches, and so yeah, it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the end of our predictions for match week 29. I will say, two games I'm especially interested in watching here are the last two that we covered. Because one, I do want to see if Man U's and Carrick's mandate of heaven can continue here. And do they manage to keep finding these wins where, like, for the first half, they are second best and they just defend really well. And for the second, they just explode, basically, into the game.
Dude, okay, one crazy question. If one of Arsenal or City just absolutely flop for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
If.
Could Man U make a title charge?
No, not a title. No, because they're not going to both flop.
Right.
But if one of them flops, could United finish top 2?
They look stable right now. They have roster depth.
Yeah,
this was a big thing for Villa, right? Was they didn't have depth.
Yeah,
but United.
The thing is, like, I don't know what the weakness even is for United at this point.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what kind of opponent they face. Yeah,
they have a very specific way of playing out their games, and it's worked so far consistently. Yeah, and the other game I'm very interested in is just Spurs. Like, how low can they go? Pretty much.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you everyone for watching the whole way through for this video. And yeah, we'll have a review video soon. There will be another prediction video very soon.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to do we're going to do the UCL, Matt. We're going to do the UCL episode somewhere in between there as well.
Yeah.
But
so it'll be a packed schedule. But yeah, expect some uploads from us very soon. And yeah, stay tuned for another episode of the CoDaKrew. Have a good one.